Well, the machines I bought on an online auction finally showed up today, and to save a little bit on freight, we went ahead and put my brother's mini excavator on there he bought at the same sale. Hopefully these machines turn out to be pretty good. Like I said, we bought these sight unseen, and we collectively have about $60,000 in these 3 machines. It's also gotten a little bit more confusing because they were brought on a step deck, and I think the freight broker and I had a little bit of miscommunication. I told them that if they were on a standard flat bed that we'd be able to back them up to our dock and unload them, and they ended up putting them on a step deck without ramps. No big deal, we're gonna get it unloaded, but let me show you how we're gonna do it. Since we don't have a dock height for a step deck here, which we may need to build one in the future just so we don't have this issue anymore, we're going to unload the machines onto our little rollback, and then we'll just move the rollback over, drop the machine off, and then back it back up and get the next one. I don't have any issues with doing the skid steers. They will work fine. We've hauled skid steers on that rollback plenty of times, but this Komatsu PC55 is going to be pushing it a little bit on the weight side of things. This machine weighs about 11,500 according to Ritchie specs or the internet, and so I think we'll be fine. I've hauled an 11,000 pound skid steer on the rollback before, but this one's definitely going to be a little bit of a challenge. Well, of course, the Komatsu has a dead battery, so I gotta wait for a jump. They're coming up, we're gonna jump it off, then we should be good to go. Well, you guys saw how bad that Komatsu smoked. I'm hoping these 2 Bobcats don't have any sort of issue like that. It sounds like this one maybe is making a little bit of noise. Rollback bed's just a tad higher than the step deck, but I don't think it'll have any issue rolling up it. I think he's just trying to make sure he's lined up. This Bobcat 770 is the one I hope turns out the best of the 3 machines. This is the one I was really after whenever I was buying. This is a larger wheeled machine, and it should work a lot better for our application than some of the smaller ones we've got. Seems to be nice, sounds good and smooth. You can see the deck height of the rollback's a little bit higher than the trailer. Now that the weight's off the trailer, it evens out with his airbags, but not a big enough difference to matter for driving a skid steer or an excavator across. All right, so we've got all the equipment unloaded and we've moved these Bobcats to the back side of the yard. So let's take a quick look at them and see if we can see anything wrong with them. and then hopefully not, and they'll be ready to use. But before we use them, the guys are going to fully service them, give them a good once over, double check everything, and make sure that there is no hidden issues that we can't see just by sort of inspecting them and test driving them. So I did drive these around the yard. They both seem to run and operate exactly how they should. They are very smooth. This machine only has, I think, 680 hours on it, which is fantastic. And this one has just under 1,500. So relatively low hours for us, especially the 770 with under 700 hours. The one thing I like about buying these machines that are more than likely ex-rental machines is that they have solid tires. So this one looks like it has basically brand new tires on it, and this one has pretty decent tires. They're not brand new, but they still got a lot of life left in them. And being able to pick these up with solid tires already on them probably saves us about $3,000 on each machine, because we cannot run air tires at all around the scrapyard. They will get ruined instantly. But I did a quick look over on the 570. We checked all the fluids before we unloaded them off the trailer, and everything is in good shape. Couldn't find any issues. The engine oil is good. This one, when it first fired up, maybe sounded like it had a little bit of a rattle or a little bit of a chatter, but after we got it off the trailer and drove it around, we didn't notice anything. I think we're just being overly cautious whenever we're first inspecting something. It's always a little nerve-wracking whenever you're buying machines sight unseen and just hoping that they turn out to be a good machine when you get them. But overall, this 570 seems to be in pretty good shape. And then this 770, same thing. We double checked all the fluids. The worst part about this machine is that at some point this machine was painted red. Whoever probably owned it before had the entire machine red, and then they tried to repaint it. So you can see down here the paint is chipping off and the red is showing through. And then on the insides of the arms and all the hard to reach places when you're painting are still red. So I think that scared a lot of people off from purchasing this machine, just because they didn't want a machine this new with a bad paint job. But it doesn't really matter to us. Around the scrapyard, this stuff is going to get sort of beat up and the paint's going to get chipped and dull and all that. So I wasn't too scared about it, but I definitely think that that played a factor. And then the other thing is, somebody painted this rear door with like a bed liner or an undercoating, something a little thicker and a little more textured. I actually don't mind that. That's actually pretty good for us. That'll probably hold up a little bit better with the scrapyard abuse. But the same thing, this engine looks great. Doesn't look like it's leaking anything. All the fluids were topped off and ready to go. The biggest difference between this one and the 570 is this one requires DEF fluid. So this is our first skid steer here that actually requires DEF fluid, and that's because this is such a bigger model with a higher horsepower engine, and so it meets the threshold in which it has to run DEF fluid. But we're gonna have to stay on top of the guys to make sure that they do not run it out of DEF, because you wouldn't believe how many times they've run machines out of diesel, which seems self-explanatory. So I'm a little bit worried about the DEF system not being topped off all the time. The other thing I didn't know about this 770 when I bought it is it's actually got a quick attach, which is awesome, but unfortunately I think around the scrapyard it's probably going to get abused, and the guys will more than likely tear that up relatively quickly. Fingers crossed they don't, but it's really a nice added feature that we really don't need. And then on both of these, the cabs are about the same. They're really nice compared to the old machines that we are sort of upgrading from, and they have a lot more comfortable seat, a lot more comfortable ride, and these are joystick controlled, which is the reason why I bought them. The guys much prefer the joystick machines to the H pattern or the hand and foot controls. So basically all the new machines going forward, I'm only going to buy joystick machines and start phasing those out. So this Komatsu 55 is the machine my brother bought at the same auction, which is why we had them all delivered together, just to save a little bit on freight. But as you saw when we got this thing to fire up, she is smoking very bad. He did the same thing. He bought sight unseen. He's in the equipment business, and he thought that it sold for a reasonable price, but unfortunately there's a reason why. And when I say a reasonable price, he thought it sold cheap, which is why he bought it. So obviously it was cheap, but for a reason. Before we took this one off the trailer, I checked the oil. The engine oil was low, probably burns a fair amount of oil with the amount of smoke that this thing was putting off. And then the battery was dead and it had a loose terminal, so we got the terminal tightened and we were able to get it jumped off. And this thing was a little bit pushing it on our small little rollback because I didn't have it centered perfectly, and then when we went to unload it, it seemed like the bed wanted to twist a little bit, but we got it off no problem. But yeah, that's as far as I'm going with this machine. I've already called him and told him that he's probably going to have a little bit of fun trying to figure this one out, but I'm not even going to crank it up or move it or do anything until he gets here, just in case something catastrophic happens. At least we'll be able to get it onto his trailer. Overall, I'm definitely happy with how these turned out. Like I said, it's always a little nerve-wracking when you're buying machines sight unseen and then just hoping when they get delivered that they're going to be in good shape. Of course, once the guys get into these and start servicing them, they may find some issues with them, but hopefully they don't. And I'll give you guys an update as things go and we start to use them, if anything changes or if we run into any issues that we missed while we were servicing them. But as always, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the next one.